Hello, it's Counselor Jay, and I wanted to give a quick little update of three smaller but pretty poignant things that I saw were different this time around for the 2022-2023 college application season. I'll start with the first one. As you can see right here, here's Caltech. Now, Caltech, for the longest time, I think like even the last 15 years that I've been in this field, has been an early action school. But this year, they decided to switch over to restrictive early action. And that happens. I'd probably say about, I don't know, maybe 5% of the top 50 schools have changed in one way or another, added an ED2, offered EA, but now switched to ED, things like that over the last 10, 15 years. So I'm not surprised that it happened. It's just that Caltech is a particularly interesting one for me, especially for students who are obviously in STEM and are pursuing more competitive level schools. And the reason why is because, well, REA is not as stackable with other early applications as you'll see. Restrictive early action, let's first understand the policy. They're saying basically you don't have to come if you get accepted. That's the action part. Decision is if you get accepted, you have to go. So they still kept the action part. You still have the chance to receive a result in mid-December, apply to regular schools, see where you get into the regulars, and then choose not to go if you don't want to. But it's really the restrictive part to the early action that becomes the contention, because they are basically restrictive means you are not allowed to apply early action or early application wise to anywhere else unless you have the following exceptions. And the exceptions are very limited. I think it's the typical REA restriction that is offered, let's say for Stanford. Basically, you can't apply to any other private school, any other binding school. The one slight exception are public institutions that are non-binding. So think public schools that are early actions. Off the top of my head, Michigan, Ann Arbor, I think Georgia Tech, early action, UVA, if they still have an early action. Oh my gosh, I need to remember if that's the case. Either way, Caltech will only allow you to apply early with other public early action schools only. Okay, so that's a big leap, and here's why. In the past, it was more just about early actions stacking. A very popular and very effective strategy for applying early was to stack with one early decision and then as many early actions that are applicable on your list. So let's say in this case, you wanted to apply early decision to Brown, or it could be the highest ranking early decision like Columbia. And then along with one early decision, you were allowed to stack as many EAs as you want. So included in that would have been MIT, UChicago, Michigan. Georgetown doesn't count. I know they say they're early action, but if you read the fine print, they kind of act more like a REA, and that's exactly what happened to Caltech this year. They switched to an REA. So back then, before the switch, you were able to apply to Caltech EA and stack 5 different super top tier schools towards STEM. And that would obviously give you a lot more room for acceptances and rejections results in mid-December. However, now that Caltech has switched to REA, they are no longer accepting or allowing you to stack. So unfortunately, you are not allowed to choose Caltech into a bundle of EA and one ED strategy. That's the first thing I wanted to note. I think that's pretty big for a lot of my STEM students who are trying to be very strategic about their early applications. The next big one is UCBerkeley. UCBerkeley, for the longest time, again, has been doing one major choice only when you apply. This is a college application for UCs. As you can see now, though, UCBerkeley is offering a second major choice like all the rest of the campuses. This brings up other questions like, Jay, does my second major choice or my alternate major choice matter? Short answer to it is yes. If you'd like to go more into detail about that, post a question for me. But yeah, I just wanted to note that Berkeley is now, for the longest time, they were the only UC that allowed you to choose one major when you applied. Now they're offering an alternate major. I'm curious about what that's going to do with the the admission results for this year, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on the data for that and posting a video about that later. Last but not least, Coalition app. So Coalition app apparently now is the Scoir. I don't know exactly why they decided to do this. Just be aware that if I now say Coalition app, I mean to say Scoir. If I say Scoir, I'm referring to what was previously the Coalition app. Why are you interested in the Coalition app? I'd say like top 50 US News ranked schools typically are on the Common App, and obviously the UC application. There's the University of Texas application, UT Austin. So there's that. But then for things like liberal arts schools and occasionally a couple of schools in the national research university ranks in the top 50, top 100 offered a Coalition app submission process. I can think of some cases, maybe a student is applying to over 20 schools that goes over the 20 limit of colleges that the Common App offers. So in order to apply to that 21st school, 22nd, 23rd school, it would spill over into the Coalition app. But now it's called Scoir. As far as I know, I created an app. Nothing's really changed. It's just called Scoir now. Also, please don't take this as a point of like, oh my gosh, Jay, do all students apply to 30, 40 schools and leverage multiple apps? No, that's not true. But, you know, I'd say maybe about 10% of students that I've come across do have a good reason. Maybe they're doing dual degree programs. Maybe they're connecting themselves to maybe a couple of liberal art choices that just makes their list go over 20, over the Common App limit of 20. And so that's when we had to leverage the Coalition app, which is now, again, called Scoir. And those were the 3 big changes I've seen so far this season. If I see any more, I'll be sure to upload some more. All right, guys.